Welcome back to Study Hall, where we love to, get our hands dirty with these huge reports. Today, we're taking a look at some interesting stuff from Tesla.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, their specialized disclosure reports,
Okay.
or Form SDs, as I guess the experts call them,
Right.
filed with the SEC between 2019 and 2023.
Okay, now these forms might sound about as fun as like watching grass grow, right?
Yeah.
But trust me on this one, they actually hold some really interesting clues about what's happening at Tesla, especially when we're talking about their supply chain.
See, this is why you're the expert. Because when I hear specialized disclosure reports, I think, ooh, new battery tech.
All right.
Not exactly like front page news for most people, right?
Right.
So break down for us. Why should we care about these reports?
So imagine this. You just bought a new Tesla, feeling good about going electric. But
Yeah.
what if that sleek design came at a hidden cost?
Yeah.
Like contributing to conflict and human rights abuses in other parts of the world.
Hold on, conflict. We're talking about electric cars, not blood diamonds, right?
You would think so.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. A lot of the minerals that go into EV batteries, things like cobalt and tantalum, tungsten, things like that, they often come from places that are, well, riddled with conflict. And that's where these reports come in. They're all about transparency, making sure companies like Tesla, aren't accidentally fueling these conflicts by how they get their materials.
So it's like Tesla's ethical report card,
Yeah.
kind of showing us if they're getting these materials responsibly.
Exactly. Think of it as like a window into how this whole global supply chain works. And it's showing us the connections, the often, unseen connections between the stuff we use every day and some really complex geopolitical issues.
Okay. Yeah, I'm definitely interested now.
Good.
So what did we find in these reports? Anything that really surprised you?
Well, the first thing that pops out is that they use this Rule 13P1 of the Securities Exchange Act over and over again across all the reports.
Okay, whoa, hold up. Even I know that's serious legal jargon. Can we translate that for our listeners who, haven't been to law school?
Yeah, of course. Basically, this rule says that companies like Tesla have to be upfront about where they get certain minerals from, especially the ones that usually come from conflict zones.
Okay.
They have to really trace those minerals back to their origin, and then they have to tell everyone about it. It's all about accountability, making sure that they're not ignoring any potential human rights problems, while they're trying to get those valuable resources.
So they're not just slapping a made responsibly sticker on the car and calling it a day.
No, definitely not. And the fact that Tesla keeps mentioning this rule in every report, it really suggests that they're taking this responsibility seriously.
All right, so they're checking all the boxes, right? But is that really the whole story? I mean, couldn't a company technically follow the rules but still, cut some corners?
That's a really good point. And that's why we have to look beyond just the legal stuff and see what these reports tell us about what Tesla is actually doing.
Okay, let's do it. Where do we start?
Well, one interesting thing is the change in their main offices. Like in the 2019, 2020, and 2021 reports, they were based in Palo Alto, California. But then by 2022, they moved to Austin, Texas.
Oh, right. The big Texas tech move, right.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen a lot of companies do that lately. Lower taxes, more space, cowboy hats.
Right.
But how does that connect to our conflict minerals thing?
Well, this move happened around the same time that there was a big increase in lithium mining in Texas. And lithium, as you probably know, is like a crucial ingredient in those EV batteries.
I see where you're going with this. So could Tesla be trying to get closer to lithium sources here in the U.S.? You know? Maybe they're trying to not rely so much on those overseas supply chains where there's all this conflict?
It's definitely a possibility, and it just shows how these little details in the reports can actually give us hints about these bigger shifts happening inside the company.
Okay, so we've got our first clue, the Texas connection. What else did you find?
Well, let's look at the names on these reports, the people who are making sure Tesla is following the rules. In 2019, it was M. Yoon-ha signing off as the contact person. Then in 2021, it was both M. Yoon-ha and Rocky Bush Patel.
Okay, so two people are better than one, right?
Maybe. But then in 2022, things change again, and we have X. Cassie Zhang. And in the 2023 report, it's Brandon Earhart, the General Counsel and Corporate Secretary for Tesla.
Wow, that's a big change. Going from someone who seemed, dedicated to this to the top lawyer. What's going on there?
It definitely makes you think, right? Is it just a reorganization, or could it mean that Tesla is changing how they think about this, how they manage their supply chain responsibilities. Maybe they're, under more pressure and they need their legal team more involved.
It's like a game of musical chairs where every change could mean something bigger is happening behind the scenes.
Right. And that's why these reports are so interesting to look at. They're not just boring legal documents. They're actually full of these little clues that can tell us a lot about a company's, values and what they're really doing.
Okay, so we've got the Texas move, the contact person shuffle. What else?
Well, there's one more thing I found interesting, especially in their 2019 report. Tesla specifically said that their full conflict minerals report was available on their website, for everyone to see.
That's interesting. Sounds like they're being pretty open about it, going beyond what they have to do, right?
Yeah.
Is that normal?
It's actually, honestly, it's not as common as you'd think. A lot of companies just do the minimum that the law requires, and that's it.
So is Tesla getting, bonus points for transparency here? Are they trying to show they have nothing to hide?
Maybe. It does suggest they're willing to, talk to people about this, engage with consumers on these important issues. They're recognizing that people are more and more concerned about where their products come from, how they're made.
Okay, so we have a company moving states, changing who's in charge of this stuff, and making their reports public. What does all this tell us about how Tesla handles this conflict minerals issue? Are they the good guys here?
Well, that's where things get a little more complicated. Welcome back.
So where we left off, we were talking about how Tesla is, handling this whole ethical sourcing thing. We looked at those specialized disclosure reports, or Form SDs, which are like Tesla's, scorecard on responsible sourcing. And we saw some interesting stuff, the move to Texas, the changes in who's in charge, and this commitment to being transparent.
Right.
But the big question is, are they actually doing what they say they're doing?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, right?
Right.
And to really answer that, we have to dig a little deeper, go beyond what's, right there on the surface, and look at what these reports don't say.
Okay, I'm ready to play detective. What kind of clues should we be looking for?
Well, think of it this way. These reports, they're just the tip of the iceberg, right? They tell us what Tesla has to tell us, but there's a whole other world of actions and decisions and partnerships happening, behind the scenes that can give us a much better picture of how committed they really are.
So where do we even start digging? What kind of information is out there that can, fill in those gaps?
A good place to start is with Tesla's own sustainability reports. These are voluntary, so they have more freedom to, talk about their initiatives, their partners, and how they're doing on their sustainability goals.
So it's like their PR campaign for being ethical.
Kind of, yeah. But that doesn't mean they're not useful. They can tell us how Tesla sees its own commitment to sourcing responsibly, what they think is important, and how they're measuring their progress.
Okay, so we're looking for the We Love the Planet vibes. What else should we be looking at?
Their website's another great resource. Look for information about their supply chain policies, their code of conduct for suppliers, and any partnerships they might have with, NGOs or other organizations that are working to improve ethical sourcing.
Got it. We're looking for concrete actions, not just words.
Exactly. And don't forget about, industry analyses and reports from organizations like Amnesty International or the Responsible Minerals Initiative. They often do really deep dives into company sourcing practices so they can give us a more objective perspective.
So it's about, getting different viewpoints to see the full picture.
Exactly. And remember, this is an ongoing process, right? The whole ethical sourcing landscape is always changing, and companies like Tesla need to be constantly adapting and improving what they do.
It's like an ethical whack-a-mole game.
Kind of, yeah. But it's a really important game to play. By, keeping companies accountable and staying informed, consumers actually have a lot of power to make things better.
All right, so we've got our Detective Toolkit sustainability reports, websites, industry analyses. What are some, red flags we should be looking for as we dig deeper?
Great question. One thing to watch out for is vague language or, a lack of specifics. If a company says they're committed to ethical sourcing but doesn't really give any details about their policies or procedures or how they audit things, that's kind of suspicious.
It's like saying, trust us, we're the good guys.
Yeah.
Without any proof.
Exactly. Another red flag is when they're not transparent about their suppliers. If a company doesn't want to tell you where they're getting their materials from, that could mean they're hiding something.
Oh, secret suppliers. That's definitely shady.
Right. And lastly, Keep an eye out for any controversies or accusations of human rights abuses connected to their supply chain. Like if there have been reports of forced labor or child labor or environmental damage, related to how they get their materials, that's a huge problem.
Okay, so vague language, secret suppliers, and past problems.
Yeah.
Those are our red flags.
Got it.
Yeah. Now, I know we can't share all the details of our investigation here, but can you give our listeners like a little preview of what we found, without naming any names?
Sure. Let's just say some companies are doing a much better job than others when it comes to being transparent and accountable. Some are actively working with, different groups, investing in new sourcing solutions, and really pushing for change across the industry.
That sounds promising. So there's hope for ethical tech.
Absolutely. But there's also a lot of work to be done. Plenty of companies are still lagging behind, hiding behind these vague promises, and not really dealing with the bigger problems in their supply chains.
So it's kind of a mixed bag out there. But at least some things are moving in the right direction.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what makes this work so important. By shining a light on these issues and giving consumers the information they need, we can push for real, meaningful change.
All right, we've covered a lot today, but we've really only just scratched the surface of this, this whole complicated topic. Where can our listeners go to learn more and, do their own investigations?
There are some great resources out there. Websites like Source Intelligence and the Responsible Minerals Initiative have a ton of information about conflict minerals, ethical sourcing practices, and how companies are ranked.
It's like a one-stop shop for ethical detectives.
Exactly. And for people who want to go even deeper, organizations like Amnesty International and Global Witness publish really detailed reports on specific companies and regions, showing the real human cost of our addiction to technology.
Okay, so we've got the resources, we've got the detective skills. What's the most important thing our listeners should take away from today?
The most important thing is to be an informed and engaged consumer. Don't just take a company's word for it. Do your own research, ask them questions, and make sure they're accountable for what they do.
It's about using our power as consumers to create the kind of world we want to live in.
Exactly. Every purchase you make is a choice. By choosing to support companies that are doing things the right way, ethically, we can help create a more just and sustainable future.
All right, welcome back to Study Hall for the big finale of our Tesla investigation.
The big finale.
Okay, maybe finale is a bit dramatic when we're talking about, conflict minerals, but
Right.
Trust me, this stuff is more exciting than it sounds.
It's definitely more important than most people realize.
Yeah.
We're talking about the basic materials that power our modern world, the stuff that's in our phones, laptops, electric cars.
Right.
It's easy to forget where that stuff comes from and what happens to the communities where those materials are mined.
Right. It's easy to get excited about the new gadget
Right.
and not think about like the human cost, right? So as responsible consumers, like what can we actually do? Is it even possible to make ethical choices in a world where everything seems connected to some kind of conflict?
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge, no doubt.
Yeah.
But it's not impossible. The first step, as we've been talking about, is awareness.
Right.
Just understanding how complicated these global supply chains are and how they can be connected to human rights abuses. That's really important. Once you have that knowledge, then you can start making more informed decisions.
Okay, so we got to do our homework before we spend our money. But where do we even begin?
Well, there are some great resources out there to help us, make those ethical choices. For example, there's this website called Ethical Consumer.
Okay.
It's fantastic. They have ratings and reports on tons of companies.
Oh, wow.
They assess how those companies are doing on all sorts of issues, including, ethical sourcing.
So it's like Yelp, but for ethical companies.
Exactly.
I like it.
You can also look for certifications, things like Fair Trade
Right.
or the Conformant designation from the Responsible Minerals Initiative. They basically show that a company has met certain standards for ethical sourcing and responsible mining practices.
So those labels, those aren't just like marketing gimmicks, right? They actually mean something.
They should, yeah.
Okay.
Of course, no system is perfect, and companies can always find ways to, work around the rules.
Yeah, right.
That's why it's important to, keep digging, read the reports, and don't just rely on those certifications.
Got it. So check the labels, but don't stop there. What else can we do to really push these companies to do better?
Don't underestimate how powerful your voice is. Reach out to these companies directly, ask them about their sourcing practices, and let them know that this stuff matters to you. Support organizations that are out there fighting for human rights and responsible mining practices. And of course, vote with your wallet,
Yeah.
choose to spend your money with companies that are really committed to doing the right thing.
It's like hitting them where it hurts their bottom line, right?
Exactly.
If enough people demand these ethical products, they'll have to listen.
Right. Consumer demand is super powerful. We've seen it over and over. When consumers speak up, companies change.
All right, so we've got our action plan. Educate ourselves, check those labels, speak up, and be mindful of where we spend our money. Any final thoughts before we wrap up our Tesla deep dive?
I think the main takeaway here is that this isn't just about Tesla, it's about all of us. As consumers, we have a responsibility to be aware of the impact of our choices, and we have to demand better from the companies we support.
It's about realizing that every time we buy something, we're making a choice, a vote for the kind of world we want to live in.
That's a great way to put it.
Well, thanks for joining us on this journey into the world of ethical sourcing. We hope you learned a thing or two, maybe felt inspired to take action, and hopefully even had some laughs along the way.
It's been a pleasure being here.
Until next time on Study Hall, stay curious, stay informed, and keep those brains buzzing.